Reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. As Jesus was leaving Jericho with his disciples and a sizable crowd, Bartimaeus, a blind man, the son of Timaeus, sat by the roadside begging. On hearing that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to cry out and say, "Jesus, Son of David, have pity on me." And many rebuked him, telling him to be silent. But he kept calling out all the more, "Son of David, have pity on me." Jesus stopped and said, "Call him." So they called the blind man, saying to him, "Take courage, get up, Jesus is calling you." He threw aside his cloak, sprang up, and came to Jesus. Jesus said to him in reply, "What do you want me to do for you?" The blind man replied to him, "Master, I want to see." Jesus told him, "Go your way, your faith has saved you." Immediately he received his sight and followed him on the way. The Gospel of the Lord. As we continue reading through the Gospel of Mark, we continue to journey with Jesus on his final journey, his final pilgrimage to Jerusalem, where he hopes to celebrate the Passover with his disciples. They're passing through Jericho, which is only about 15 miles away from Jerusalem, accompanied by what St. Mark describes as a sizable crowd. Jesus knows what awaits him when they arrive in Jerusalem, and he's been open and honest with his disciples about it. 3 times he's told them now, once they get to Jerusalem, he will be condemned, mocked, spit upon, beaten, and put to death, but that he will rise on the 3rd day. It's very possible that some in this sizable crowd will be with Jesus when he gets to Jerusalem and shout with the crowd, "Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." And it's not unlikely that some in this crowd, just a few days later, will stand before Pilate and shout, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" But as Jesus and the crowd leave Jerusalem, Jesus performs the last healing miracle recorded in Mark's Gospel. He heals a blind man, a man named Bartimaeus, who is sitting beside the road begging. Bartimaeus hears the crowd pass by. He asks what all the commotion is about, and when he's told it's Jesus of Nazareth, his soul is so fired with faith that he cries out, "Jesus, Son of David, have pity on me." The noise he's making, we're told, offends some of those that are traveling with Jesus. They tell him to be quiet, but Bartimaeus cries out again and again, "Son of David, have pity on me." When Jesus finally calls him over and asks what he wants, Bartimaeus replies, "Master, I want to see." In response, he hears Jesus say, "Go your way. Your faith has saved you." Bartimaeus' sight is restored immediately, and he chooses to take the way of following Jesus. We may not be physically blind like Bartimaeus, but all of us from time to time need to have our vision restored. When things are going well, it's much easier to follow the path that Bartimaeus chooses, to follow Jesus along the way, to live a life of faith and trust in God. But there are times in all our lives when challenges and difficulties arise, when sin and sadness and the stresses of life cloud our vision, making it impossible to see things as they are, testing our faith and our trust in God. It's during these most difficult times that we should remember Bartimaeus. He represents the person who has lost the light and knows it, but has not lost hope, who in the darkness of his pain is crying out, confident of being healed. And critically, he knows how to seize the opportunity to encounter Jesus. When he hears that the Master is passing along the road, he cries out continuously, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." When Jesus calls him and asks him what he wants, he replies, "Master, I want to see." And isn't that what we all want? We want to see, to know why things are the way that they are, to be able to see things as God sees them, to hear the words, "Go your way, your faith has saved you." In his prayer, as he cries out to Jesus, Bartimaeus gives us a model of how to pray when life becomes difficult. First, Bartimaeus is honest with himself about his condition. something that's not hard for him to do because he's physically blind. What's more difficult for us is to be honest with ourselves about our spiritual blindness. Never forget that the sacrament of reconciliation is called a sacrament of healing. And it doesn't begin the moment that we walk into the confessional and begin to confess. It begins the moment we examine our conscience, when we're honest with ourselves about our condition. Bartimaeus also recognizes that there's nothing he can do to make things right because he can't see the way forward. He recognizes that he needs help. And he's not ashamed to ask for that help. In fact, he cries out for mercy. He also won't let others deter him. He knows that Jesus not only hears his cries, but already knows what he needs. So he is persistent, even when there is no answer right away. And since he has examined his life, he is very specific about what he needs. Master, he says, I want to see. An encounter with Christ opens our eyes to the path that we should take. Blind Bartimaeus shows us that what true discipleship is, following Jesus along the way in the light of faith. When we take time out of our busy lives to pray, even if only for brief moments, we encounter Jesus as he passes by. And like Bartimaeus, we call out to him so that we can see more clearly and follow him more closely. The time we take to be with the Lord in prayer, in Eucharistic adoration, and here in the celebration of the Mass brings us more fully into the spiritual light that helps us to restore our trust in God's plan for our lives, especially in uncertain times. On regaining his sight, Bartimaeus joined the sizable crowd that followed Jesus, a crowd which must have included others like him, others who had been healed by Jesus, a crowd not very different from those of us gathered here this morning, who at the beginning of Mass are invited to examine our lives, to confess our sins, and to cry out as Bartimaeus did, Lord, have mercy. Christ, have mercy. Lord, have mercy. To approach Jesus in gratitude and humility. To encounter Jesus in the gospel that is proclaimed and in the Eucharist that is shared. To hear the words of the Master, go your way, your faith has saved you. To receive God's light and God's mercy so that we too can continue to follow Jesus on the way.